Hi, everybody. I arrived at Stanford University in 1991 when my beard was red. I study the growth and failure of companies. Well, if you showed up at Stanford in 1991 to study the growth and failure of companies, you were in the right place at the right time. Most companies created in the world, never mind Silicon Valley, since 1991, are dead. A handful are colossal. Myself and others have studied these organizations, and I think if I had to sum up what we have learned, it would be in two phrases. Number one, we are very bad at predicting. We didn't see the World Wide Web coming. That's like a clairvoyant being stuck in an avalanche. You couldn't see that? Number two, we are very good at retrospectively rationalizing all of those things that we failed to predict. We are so good at it that we forget that we did not predict them. You laugh, but you laugh because you know it's true. You laugh because you know it's true. All of these great companies have been retrospectively rationalized so much that the lessons we've learned from them are now taught as competitive strategy, as if we saw it coming, as if they were planned. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. But in every one of those companies' histories, they began with people saying they were crazy, that they were wrong. Nobody wanted to fund Google. Nobody wanted to fund Google. Google was created in the year that we saw the failure of a large number of search engines. Facebook. I remember when I first wrote my very first Facebook case, and Mark Zuckerberg came to my class, the students, and at Stanford, the students grade the professors. So the students said, well, you know, Barnett, it's okay, but get rid of this Zuckerberg guy. He's not even a businessman. Boy, we are bad at predicting. But we're good at retrospectively rationalizing. Jack Ma. Steve Jobs was the poster child for bad leadership at the Harvard Business School in the 1990s. And of course, now he is ranked alongside Gandhi and Jesus Christ and the Prophet Muhammad as one of the greatest leaders in history. Okay, I think, have we made the point? These two facts create for you, as business leaders, a leadership problem. And to understand that problem, I have to ask you a question. When you have an innovative idea, does everybody have to agree with your idea for it to be good? No, of course. In fact, even if you thought that was true, because you're at this wacky conference, you would say no. Right? You would say no. But now let me ask this. Do you want everybody to agree with you? Is it better to have a consensus idea when you're an innovator or a non-consensus? What do you think? What's better? To have everybody supporting you or to have a non-consensus? What's better? Okay, I hear people saying consensus. I hear people saying non-consensus. Now, what's good about having the consensus behind you? You can execute. You can get it done. Now, a gentleman here in the front said non-consensus. Sir, what's the explanation? Why is it good to have a non-consensus idea?
You have to rethink it.
Ah, you have to rethink it. That's part of the reason. Who knows the biggest reason that makes non-consensus innovations great?
If you think it right.
Yeah, you make a lot of money. That's it. Look, I work in the belly of the capitalist beast. I can tell you that if you are non-consensus and right with your innovation, it's going to be hard to execute. But if you can execute, then we will retrospectively rationalize what you have done while you cash in. Okay, that's the way it works. That's the way it works. Now, but what if your innovative idea is wrong? If your innovative idea is wrong, do you want to be consensus or non-consensus? Come on, it's easy. Consensus, come on. When you're wrong, look, when humans are wrong, they just don't want to be alone. Simple as that. Your son comes home and he says, "Dad, everybody at school," never a good start to a conversation, "everybody at school had trouble on the math test. Is your child concerned about the state of education?" He's just calibrating you. He's just calibrating you so he can talk about how he did on the math test, right? Look, I lost money in 2008. We all lost money in 2008. But if I'm wrong and I'm non-consensus, I am a fool. We told him he was wrong, and he's wrong. Oh. And here is your leadership problem. The fear of being a fool is stronger than the hope of being a genius. You can tell that I am not an inspirational speaker, but I am a realist. And you as a leader must be a realist, because your people are probably afraid to talk about their non-consensus ideas for fear of being shown to be a fool. And now ask yourself this. Look, I go into organizations all the time. Sometimes I find organizations where people find it is safe to talk about non-consensus ideas, even if they are wrong. In other cases, they don't feel safe. Let me ask you this. If I went and talked to your people, would they consider it safe to talk about their non-consensus ideas? And if not, what does that say about you as a leader? I often have executives come to me. This is what happens when your beard becomes gray. And they typically begin by saying, "I know what you do, and we want innovation, but we want good innovation." And that ends the conversation. You want good innovation, so you're going to look at all that foolishness and manage it away, and in the process destroy any chance of discovering genius. Because foolishness is the price of genius. Non-consensus ideas are mostly ridiculous and probably should be gotten rid of, but a handful of them turn out to be genius. In order to get that handful, since you're bad at predicting, don't look for what's right. Look for the non-consensus. You want to see disruption? Don't go to a conference. Oh, there's disruption going on, just not at conferences. Conferences are made to achieve consensus. Business plan competitions. If you win a business plan competition, by definition, you're not interesting. You need to look for the non-consensus idea, the heretic, the fool. Look, here's how the system works. We want non-consensus, but organizations focus on building consensus. Initially resisting those fools, and then later retrospectively rationalizing them and enshrining them. So much so that the next generation mistakenly thinks that those geniuses were always being supported, that Jack Ma had support, that Irwin Jacobs was admired by all. Actually, here is the path to greatness. Despite consensus, there's some handful of fools who act as deviants. Because they're deviants, they have a chance to discover what none of the rest of us can see, since we're stuck in the consensus. If they persist, they'll probably fail, supporting our belief in the consensus and making it ever more difficult for anyone to feel comfortable being a deviant. And a handful of them will succeed and grow. And that handful, we will retrospectively rationalize, and they become the consensus. That's reality. You may not like it, but that's reality. Now, let me tell you how you can lead in this context. Do not pretend to know what's next. You don't. Instead, realize it is your job as a leader to design the system that discovers what's next. Your job is not to know. Your job is to design the system that discovers. Now that sounds fine. What does that mean? Well, those systems have certain characteristics. First of all, those systems, and we've seen them in many contexts, permit deviance. They allow for the existence of non-consensus ideas. Secondly, they allow for failure because that is the price of discovery. Failure is not an indictment of your worth in such organizations. It is a measure of your courage and your willingness to test hypotheses. And then finally, once those discoveries occur, we allow them to grow despite the fact that they threaten the status quo. Resist going to conferences where you listen to billionaires talk about disruption. A billionaire talking about disruption is like the czar appointing a commission to look into revolutionary thinking. You must realize that tomorrow's disruptions will come when we learn to lead by design. Thank you very much.